Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I'm Scott Nichols.
Hey, what's up with you today?
So I'm just doing well.
Life treating you decent?
Of course.
Well, I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think all things are good, you know? I mean,
things
there's
are good.
always challenges in life, but as we talked about in a previous episode, I'm getting over that.
Okay.
I'm able to move on.
Well, I'm glad. Things going well at home?
Yeah.
Kids are doing fine?
Doing lots of reading, doing lots of weight loss, doing lots of, graduate coursework still. So
college is more fun now than it was when I was in college.
Oh, much
the
better.
First time.
Much better.
Maybe because I actually care and want to learn.
Yeah, graduate work is a lot better, and the grading policies and all the things are way better. Right.
Yeah, that is true.
It's like college is better than high school. And graduate is better than undergraduate college. So
I'll agree with you.
In the graduate program, you get to kind of learn what you're looking for. So it's nice.
Yes, much more specific. So
yeah. And it helps me be a better person. So, which is, what we're always trying to do here.
That is true.
Right.
Improve our skills in many different areas. And
yeah.
So
I'm reading a book.
Okay.
And I'm not going to mention the title of the book right now, but it deals with anxiety.
Okay.
And social media and all the things, and talks a bit in the book too about parenting styles and things like that. But, relative to those things. And so
when you're saying parenting styles, you're talking about, like helicopter parents and
yeah, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Right. So, healthy and unhealthy parenting.
Okay.
So, and there'll be more after I finish the book, we can talk more about those things. But, healthier versus unhealthy parenting styles in different things. And we came across this article, by Calantha Quinlan.
Okay.
And, this is the one from marriage.com.
Yes. They've had good stuff before.
It says unhealthy parenting styles, types, signs, and ways to improve. And so, I thought we could talk about this a little bit today.
Oh, sure.
And so, but we don't want to focus on the negative.
Okay.
Right? We all know that all of us as parents do crazy things and do some bad things. And we know what those things are usually. But if you're not sure, right, we can tick off a few of them here, because a part of the article has 7 signs of unhealthy parenting styles.
Okay.
And I think that most people will understand what these things mean just by the titles of them.
Okay.
And then I thought we could move on into the more positive side. Like, these are the unhealthy things.
Yeah.
What do we replace those with? Like, where do we focus? Because we don't want to focus on the unhealthy stuff.
True. So these are the ones that
we know the bad things that we do.
So you're going to go over the stuff that maybe we do, but we probably should try to avoid,
right?
When possible.
And I think the titles of these, the topics themselves will lend themselves more to like a reflection for me or the listener, right? Like, do I do these things?
Okay,
and they're easy to look up.
Okay,
right. So there are signs that if you want to take a step towards a healthier family, these are things you want to like undo.
Okay.
Right. So, a lack of emotional support from parents, like you're removed.
Like you don't care what the kids are doing?
And you're just not giving them what they need.
Okay.
Right. So maybe you're sitting on your phone at dinner and you're not actually engaging.
Okay.
Overly critical behavior.
Okay.
Right. Like always jumping on your child for things that they're doing, even if it's small.
Ooh, I've had some kids that have commented that mom and dad criticize them on
Sure.
so
I've seen
much of what they
teachers do this, and some of the research I'm doing now suggests that that's pretty damaging to people who are developing their brains still.
Yeah.
And then neglecting the child's needs. Right. This makes them feel kind of hopeless. They're not getting what they want, what they need, not just what they want. Right. Like they might want a phone.
Okay.
They might want to go over to a friend's house, but lack of emotional support that they need.
Okay, so, but when you're talking about neglecting a child's needs, is it just emotional, or is this physical?
I mean,
or-
it could be either, right? I mean, it could be about food, but it could also be about that emotional support. And I think, given the social media interaction that these kids have today,
okay,
and the negative effects of that,
okay,
that creates some of that anxiety.
Okay.
Not being there emotionally, like helping them and neglecting their needs in that area is tough. And some of that might be put the dang phone down so we can talk.
That is true.
I mean, you have to do that.
Okay.
But then there's excessive control, right? Like helicopter type stuff where we're just always on them, and we're controlling their choices and their relationships and where they go, and we've got a set schedule that's like so booked. That's booked more than my schedule.
Yeah.
And there's not a free moment for any kind of free play in their life.
Well,
too much control.
I get emails from some of these parents saying, hey, why'd my kid fail? Why'd my kid
Sure.
Why haven't you graded their assignment that was done yesterday,
Right.
Or turned in this afternoon? Yeah.
Or why do they have a B?
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's not so bad. That's above average.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then there's the opposite, right? Like lack of boundaries.
Oh.
Like, we're just not going to do anything. We're just letting them do whatever they want.
Okay.
But then they get confused when we come back and say, you can't do that. But you don't have any boundaries.
Okay.
Clearly set on things. And so
I think
it
kids
becomes
need
very
boundaries.
Confusing for children, right? They're still developing their brain, and they're still looking for a safety that they need. And they can act better within boundaries and learn better within boundaries.
Okay.
Than just not having any.
Yeah. Yeah.
And today, like with social media and with their devices, I mean, they have access to all kinds of stuff, that good and bad, that I never had access to when I was their age.
Yeah.
And they tend towards the bad stuff.
Well, yeah.
So,
well,
I think using fear or intimidation.
Okay.
Right? Like,
you see that a lot in like TV shows and movies where, kids remembering something from their past and they had an abusive parent that would hit them or punch them, strike them, stuff like that.
And I don't even think it needs to be physical. It could be as simple as, stop doing that, or I'm going to take away this thing. And if you're not actually going to do it, don't say it.
Okay.
Right. Because that's part of the next one as well. Inconsistent and unpredictable behavior.
Okay.
Right. I mean, so we don't want to, make them afraid of things.
True.
We also don't want to be uncredible as a parent. Right.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So there's a lot of, these are some kind of negative behaviors that parents have towards children, and children are in that sensitive stage of developing their brains, and all these things kind of affect that, and might be, I think all of us probably identify with one of these at some point.
Oh, I think I've done a number of them.
I've had lack of boundaries.
Yeah.
In the past, I've probably used fear and intimidation.
Yeah.
I've definitely had unpredictable behavior.
Yes.
Right. I mean, those things are, my parenting was quite a while ago. So it's, I'm not saying it's over, but they're adults now. So it's much less of an impact. But, those are some negative things. So, and then, the article goes on and starts to deal with so what do we replace that with?
Well, and kind of to piggyback on what you were just saying, kids learn a lot through observation.
Right.
And as we model all of these behaviors. And as a result, they pick up on this. And what I have found is that when I became a parent, I was saying and doing some of the things that my own parents did. And now, luckily for me, I was blessed with amazing parents who did a fantastic job raising my sisters and I. And with reflection going back, they did a lot of things that at the time I was going, ooh, what the heck? Why are we doing this? But now I go, oh, that was actually pretty dang smart.
Sure.
Way to go, Dad and Mom. So if we understand that kids are observing and learning what to do or how to act through our actions,
right,
then I think that your ideas here are actually carry more weight and
I think
are
that's
more valid.
Where, if there's a lack of emotional support or there's neglecting the child's needs or those kinds of things, just keep in mind, right? Like they're going to get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And you want them to get it from you.
Yeah.
You don't want them to get it from TikTok.
No, and you want them to learn the something more healthy, something better, something that is more positive,
right,
rather than the negative, because the negative can come back and bite you in the butt in really horrible ways. So I think some of the stuff that we can do as parents, as adults working with kids, is listen. And you and I have talked about this before on many occasions. Listen to understand.
Right. So more than just hearing.
Yeah. Pay attention. Give them your undivided attention and just be actively involved in what they're saying. And not necessarily that you're looking to provide a solution or a resolution or they're looking for advice. Maybe they just want to vent.
Yeah.
But you give them your undivided attention and listen. And I think that and that is hard to do. I think as young parents, I think as, active adults trying to work, balance life and, life at home, life at work, life with kids. I think that's hard to do.
Sure. We live busy lives.
Way busier than maybe we should. But if we give our kids that undivided attention, well, then it makes them feel value.
Right.
Feel valued and important, and then it kind of helps build some of their resiliency and their ability to problem solve themselves. So,
yeah, I think that's great.
Okay. Something else that we can do is ties right in with this active listening is to embrace some empathy. Share with them. I understand that you can
Were you ever a kid?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah, because, there were times that I questioned how the heck did my parents ever get to be functioning adults?
Right.
Because they're so stupid. But I was 16 years old when I was thinking that.
Sure.
But when you're a little kid, I think if you feel like mom or dad care, and as adults, what we can do is hug your children, hold them tight. Let them know that they are loved, that you provide, some security and comfort, but just show, again, some empathy.
I'm always surprised that teenagers and younger, like they think that we didn't go through any of the things that they went through. and I love that phrase, like there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like, there's nothing is any different. All the things that we have today that people go through in their brains and with their bodies. I mean, it's always been there. We just understand it more today.
Yes.
Which is a good thing, right?
Yes.
We've got education. We've got knowledge, that helps us. Now, we might experience it more frequently.
True.
Given the, electronic and digital age that we're in. But there are things that we experience. I mean, when I was in middle school, I saw a counselor frequently in school because I was bullied.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I had things that I was dealing with. And so, that's part of, when I started teaching high school, the great thing is I understand some of these kids.
Oh, yes.
Because I went through and I was, some of the, especially like the on-level kids that struggle with behaviors and things like that was me.
Yeah.
So I totally understand them. And I can, put myself in their shoes a little bit and I can talk to them.
I think that a lot of kids don't appreciate that not every teacher was the straight A kid who loved school.
Probably far less than you think.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of what makes them good teachers.
I think so.
Because they can understand kids.
Yes. Provide, again, a little empathy.
But, as parents, we need to do that. We need to remember where we were as kids. And, not the activities, right? Like I went outside and, I didn't come back till the lights went out on the street.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because they don't do that.
No.
But you still went through the other things. You still fought with your parents. You still had relationship issues with other kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was fighting. There was all those things. And it's just, maybe it's battering them a little bit more because of social media, but they're still dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah, same stuff. It's a different format, different delivery system, but same stuff.
You got to embrace that and help them through it.
Well,
let them know you care and you know.
Well, yeah, and tying in with that love by showing a little bit, by listening, by showing some empathy, is also setting clear and consistent boundaries. That is something that I feel that my mom and dad did. That is something that I try and do in the classroom.
Right.
Is, look, I'm going to show you empathy. I'm going to show you love and compassion, but I have a 0 cell phone tolerance policy.
Sure.
And I am consistent, and I am, this is my boundary. Boom. I told you day one, and I will take your phone. Put it away.
Right.
But I think that if, I might piss off kids, but at least I'm consistent, because they're going to see me doing it not just to them, but I'm going to do it to the other kids as well. And when a kid knows where their boundaries are, I think they learn how to function better.
Yeah, I mean, those clear expectations are important. And I think that this goes to, I love history.
Yeah. Both of us do.
The Northeast area, if you're up there, right, there's a lot of houses with like white picket fences.
Okay.
And why would they have that white picket fence? Well, that's because, you would have children in the yard, and that picket fence is the boundary.
Yeah.
And the kid knows what their freedom is that they have up to that fence.
Yeah.
If the fence wasn't there, they might just run out in the road and get run over.
Yeah.
Right? And they wouldn't have known not to do that.
Well,
and I know there's people out there, and I've even said it before, like, okay, so if you put your hand on the hot stove, you'll never do it again.
Yeah.
But if you run out in the road and you get run over,
well, there's not coming back from that.
You're probably not coming back from that. Right? So there's some serious consequences sometimes to things, and clear and consistent boundaries with students or with your children, right, is important.
Yes, and that's, I guess, where I chafe sometimes at school, is that we have school policy, but school policy is not enforced. And I'm going, look, if you're not going to enforce the policy, then get rid of the policy.
Well,
but if you're going to have the policy...
I don't disagree with that. I do think that society wants schools, in one sense, to be parents, and in another sense, not.
Well, either you are or you are not. You can't be both.
I do think that from our perspective as educators, our job is to educate them in the content that we were told to.
Yes.
By the state to educate them in. And I can't be responsible for everything.
You are correct.
Student, right? Like, that's a parent responsibility.
True. And we could go off down a rabbit hole in that. But I think, again, though, when you have clear set boundaries, everybody knows how to operate. They know where the limits are. They can experiment and, explore within those boundaries. And as time goes, you can expand those boundaries. I mean, that's why with little kids, you have them, pretty tight. But as they get older, by the time they get into being preteens and then high school is adolescence, you expand them. But you still got to have clear set boundaries.
And within that, here's something I'm going to grab the next one here. Here's something that we do in education. Frequently, right? Offer choices when we can.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so we do that with things called choice boards, where it's like, okay, so here's the boundary. Like, this is what you're learning.
Yeah. And
here's 4 options of how you can do that.
Okay.
And so you get to choose which way you want to learn it. Right? Which goes into some learning styles and things like that. But that gives the child some agency in the thing that they're doing.
We did
within those boundaries
something a while back on chores, and putting a thing up about, well, okay, you want to earn money.
Sure.
So, well, here's a chore list, and there's a dollar value for each one. Or, maybe you want screen time on, your PlayStation or Xbox. Well, you can earn play time by doing these chores. So again, offering choices. I think that is, I've become a big fan of this. I don't know that we got a lot of choices when I was growing up.
No.
It was kind of, you did.
I mean, I made a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And they weren't all good.
True.
So,
true.
I mean, but to be clear, right, there's always a choice.
That is correct.
And the child is always going to recognize there's a choice. I mean, that we're getting to basic economics now, right? Like, you always have a choice.
Yes.
So, and so the child is always going to have a choice before them.
Yes.
And oftentimes they will choose the bad choice.
Well, because a bad choice
but if you
is
give
easier.
them 2 or 3 good choices,
Yeah.
they're probably going to choose one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, within that boundary.
Well, bad choices, for whatever reason, like bad food, is cheaper and easier than.
But if they come with a consistent consequence,
true,
then the child will quickly learn that's not a good choice.
Fair enough. Well, tying in with that and going back to boundaries, and this is something that I think my folks did. They used a mix of positive and negative, but it was mostly positive reinforcement. And, you know, with Eric, one of the things that we would do, and I learned this from his daycare provider, it wasn't necessarily punishing him.
Sure.
But, okay, well, your toy acted out, so your toy goes to timeout. There would be times when he would have a hard time expressing himself emotionally. And so he'd try and throw a temper tantrum. It's kind of like, well, look, I'm going to have you sit right here. And when you're ready to actually talk to me or express yourself without, you know, yelling or screaming or throwing things, then we can, you know, talk and you can, you know, get off the couch. Or your toy, you know, once your toy is, you know, been in timeout for a little while and learned its lesson, now we can bring your toy back.
Yeah.
Trying to, you know, provide something that is less of a negative punishment.
I think this can be really simple too.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be related to punishment, but when somebody does something good,
ooh,
right, and particularly your child, tell them you're proud of them.
My mom and dad did that a lot.
Right? Let them know you're proud of them for what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good thing, right? That raises like dopamine levels and all kinds of stuff in your brain and makes the child feel good, right?
True.
That's part of the empathy. That's part of letting them know, like providing emotional support. I mean, it's all the things.
Yeah.
And if you just let them know that where they did well, you won't have to talk about the negatives as much.
No, and you're right, because that does actually, the kids want the praise, so they'll do more stuff to earn the praise than they will the punishment.
Absolutely.
So the positive reinforcement, hey, you did good today. Hey, you did a nice job when you cleaned, you know, your bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, it's something we learn as teachers, right? Like you can make a phone call home and just give a positive comment about the kid.
And suddenly...
And so when the parent then, hopefully they take that and turn around and say, hey, your teacher called and said you did a great job.
Yeah.
And the kid is elated.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're happy that somebody, an adult, noticed them doing something right.
That is correct.
In a society where all we usually do is
provide negative.
See what they did wrong.
Yeah.
And they get a lot of negative on social media.
Well, they do. And so, that kind of ties in then with the next one, or the next suggestion provided, is that model the behavior you want.
Oh my goodness. You want me to do what I actually am saying I want them to do?
Yeah. And that is something I think that, you know, we as educators do, but I think that across the board, and I think my mom and dad did. My mom and dad, they demonstrated all the way to the end that hard work pays off. We're going to work hard. We're going to work side by side, and we're going to teach you the value of hard work, but we're going to model that as well. So we're going to, you know, the attention to detail, the little things matter.
Sure, but there has to be reward.
Well, there was always reward, sure, but it was, I mean, I joke, well, that's good enough for government work.
Sure.
But that,
sure,
you know, as adults, whether we're as parents or as teachers or whatever, coworkers, managers, leaders, whatever, model that behavior that you want the kids, because as I've said before, kids are always watching. always watching.
I think this is really important, and there's so much research out there. And if you're a book reader, there's plenty of books you could buy on this, or take from your local library. Get a library card.
Yeah.
Hey, but modeling behavior is important because I think there's too often we see things, or you hear news stories where there's somebody who gets arrested for domestic violence. And then you find out as they dig into them, oh, by the way, their parent was a domestic violence abuser as well. And so it can go both ways, right? Like we can model the good behavior we want them to exhibit and use throughout their life, or we can drink and smoke and do all the things that we consider negative nowadays,
and then wonder why the
abuse, and then they'll do it too.
Yeah. Because you don't want your kid to be drinking. Well, then don't be drinking a ton at home every day. I mean, my dad.
But some of us come from troubled homes where those things are happening, but we need to try to rise up and be better than that, and model some positive behavior so that we can break out of the cycle.
True, because what you were saying, domestic violence, stuff like that is a generational issue. So,
it's a learned behavior.
Well, and that kind of brings us to the next suggestion they have is provide or foster an environment where you can learn positive things. Help a kid understand, how to be resilient. Okay, so you failed at what you wanted. Okay, well, what contributed to that?
Sure.
Let's explore that. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to berate you. Or, okay, one of the things that my parents would do is they would send us to our room. We would do something wrong, something bad, and they would send us to our room. And the first response was, or the comment was, you need to think about what you did and why it was wrong. Or even worse, you go to your room and you wait till your father gets home.
Right.
And
so there's a threat.
Yeah. But here's the thing. You go to your room, you're thinking about a little bit about what you did, but my folks would then come in.
I'm just thinking about how I was right and what I did was righteous.
Well, when they would come in, they would say, okay, why do we believe what you did was wrong? And we would talk about that. What could you have done differently? And usually then if there was a negative punishment like a swat on the butt, it would come after that. It was never done in anger, but it was always, okay, here's what you did, but here we don't want you to do this again. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to learn from it. And part of that includes, maybe a few swats on the butt, which was kind of funny because one of my older sisters, won't mention the name Deanna, but she, when mom and dad came in to visit with her, she had been putting on multiple pairs of underwear.
Yeah.
To cushion.
Pat it up just a little bit.
Yes. So anyway, I thought that was
cool. I mean, I think a discussion about that, right? Have the child think about and reflect on. Right. I mean, those are practices we should do as adults.
Oh, absolutely.
We should reflect on our day at the end of the day and think about, like, what did we do well and what did we not do well? And how can we be better the next day?
That is correct.
Right. So, I think that a lot of kids today, though, right, they're so buried in social media that, like, a lot of their emotion is played out there and not at home.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because something else that they encourage we as parents or adults to do is to have our kids express themselves emotionally. And not on social media, but to us.
So you gotta give them that space, right? And sometimes it's ugly.
Yeah.
Right? And it's messy, but you gotta let them do it.
Well, so that way, if, like, I have a nephew that he's 5th grade, been this way for several years. He's grown up with a phone.
Right.
And he plays his games and he gets very angry. And he starts to basically throw a temper tantrum. And when he's been at our house, he gets all bent out of shape. And no, I ain't talking to you. I ain't gonna, gets all crab cakes with me. And I'll tell him, well, I tell you what, while you're here, well, if this is the way you're feeling, I want you to put that down.
Yeah.
And then I talk with him and I tell him, look, you're not alone. I've gone through this too. I find it frustrating, but here's some ways that we can do better so that the game doesn't control our emotions.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
I don't know how effective it is, but my goal is to help him find a way to express himself. He can be angry, he can be frustrated, but you don't need to yell, you don't need to scream, you don't need to cuss, you don't need to throw, the game device or your controller halfway across the room, because I've kind of done some of that.
Yeah.
But
see, I don't get into games like that, so it's not my thing.
Do. I mean, and this is maybe a familial thing because we were playing a game of Monopoly many years ago.
Oh, the most emotional and family fight game.
Oh,
ever.
So we were playing, and it was me and my two sisters, and I guess she would be like a second cousin. Anyway, we were all playing. And my oldest sister, I won't name her name, Teresa, but she got something bad had happened. I don't remember what it was, but she just flipped the game upside down, threw it all, just
that's happened in every household in America for everybody who's ever played Monopoly.
So anyway,
it's frustrating. Right?
Yes,
it's a game that you're not supposed to be able to win, but
true.
Listen, emotional expression isn't. So here's what I've learned about this.
Okay,
as a parent and as a husband, particularly parent of daughters, and of course, my wife. It seems to be in my household anyway more common with the women to be a little bit more emotional. It's not a judgment on anybody, right? It's just that my son isn't very emotional, and so we have this. When emotion comes out like that, my immediate response, you want to provide safety and I want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, when they're expressing their emotions, don't want you to fix it. No. They want you to listen.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding and helping them to manage their own emotions and for them to find a solution to it is better.
True. Well, then that ties, I guess, in with their final suggestion. And I know that my mom and dad did this well. I don't know that I do this as well with my nieces and nephews when they come to visit, but that is prioritize quality time.
Do we even know what that is today?
I don't know, but I think that is, okay, for example, my youngest nephew, is coming over tomorrow. And I'm going to be babysitting with him.
Awesome.
So what we're going to do, he doesn't realize this yet, but we're going to play games. Fun. And at least for part of the time, maybe not the whole time, but we're going to play maybe Sorry or Uno or Jenga.
But not Monopoly.
No, not Monopoly. Good. He's too young. But I think that being able to provide quality time, being able to spend time with our kid. One of the things that I always wished my dad had been able to do. I mean, he worked all the time. So, but I want to, go fishing.
Yeah.
Or play catch. My parents did a great job raising my sisters and I, and especially looking back. Because they always made time for us, whether it was mom or it was dad or together. My dad and I, we would watch Monday Night Football.
Right.
And he would always say, well, who are you going to go for tonight? And I go, well, I'm going to go for Team A. And he goes, okay, well, I think I'll go for Team B then. And and so we would watch the game.
Contrarian right there.
Oh, it was. But my parents always made time for us kids. And I look back now and I go, that was great.
And that's important, right? So we talk about like modeling behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of us has exactly the same amount of time every day. Right? Mm-hmm. We all have 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so wherever that time lines up for us with our children, if we don't spend it with them, they'll notice.
That is true.
Right. And so that'll let them know, oh, they don't really care about me.
Yeah.
Right. And now maybe when they're a teenager, they're like, I don't want to spend time with you, so leave me alone. But that's a different problem, right? But we got to spend time with our kids. I mean, I do this with my adult kids now.
Yes.
We set aside usually a Saturday morning early to have breakfast together. A lot of families will have Sunday dinner. We do breakfast. And so they all come over and we have breakfast and we love it and spend time with my grandson and I've spent time with my daughters and it's a good neat. Time, right? It's an easy meal to make. It's cheap and, we all love it. So, that's kind of what we do. And it's, 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Pretty regularly. It gets interrupted here and there, but pretty regularly, right? So what kind of time are we spending with our kids? And is it daily? Mm-hmm. If they're younger and living at home, right? I would think it would be some amount of time every day.
Yeah.
And phone free, right? Like trying to make sure that we're focused on each other and not distracted by other things.
Yes. Totally agree.
So, wow. I mean, these are 9 great items that replace the negative things that we talked about. I think these are things that I'm going to reflect on some more. I
mean, again, I go back and I think, okay, how do I want my kids to be? Now, I mean, again, I have stepchildren and as they are,
but you can
adults,
still be a model.
Yes. And I think that is something that I've tried to share, with with Sherry is that how we communicate, how we interact with my nieces and nephews. I've been trying, to levels of success to model, good behavior. I don't always, because sometimes I forget that I am not a parent. I am not their teacher. I'm an uncle.
Well, you can say that. You may not be a biological parent, but, step parents are still parents.
True.
It's part of the name.
True.
And so you may be limited by whatever the biological parent is allowing you to do, but you can always be an example, right? You can always exhibit behavior that you want other people, whether they're kids, stepkids, friends, whatever, right? You can always exhibit behavior that you would want other people to exhibit.
Yes, that is correct.
So,
well, then I think maybe we could exit now and go try some of these.
I think that I'm going to reflect on these and think about this during the week and see how I might change my own behaviors.
All right.
All right.
Well, then I guess until next time, my name's Rod.
I'm Scott.
See ya.
Bye-bye.